On the day I was reborn, Yan Wanshu had just entered the mansion. She was an orphan who had been adopted by my mother as her foster daughter. And then she took everything from me. In my previous life, I was forced to marry her in a political alliance, wed a man who had always loved her, endured endless humiliation, and ultimately jumped to my death from the city walls in a foreign land. Now, upon seeing her again, Yan Wanyu was hiding behind my mother, timidly peeking out to look at me. Sister. Sister. I am Wanyu. I curled my lips. Who are you? You wild girl. Daring to call this princess sister? Welcome to my channel. If you like this story, please click to subscribe. There are more wonderful stories waiting for you to listen to. Chapter 1. The feeling of jumping off the city wall and landing with every bone in my body shattered was unbearable. On the first day of my rebirth, seeing Yan Wanshu holding my mother's arm and entering the mansion together in such intimacy was even more unbearable. Yan Wanshu was an orphan my mother had picked up on her way back to the capital after visiting her maternal grandmother. Though her features had not yet fully developed, she already displayed an extraordinary beauty. In my previous life, when she entered the mansion, I had already received the imperial edict and gone to Tianyin Monastery with several other princesses to shave my head and practice asceticism for half a year, praying for the recovery of the ailing Empress Dowager. I left the mansion in the morning, and Yan Wanshu entered in the afternoon. So we missed each other. When I returned to the mansion 6 months later, she had already become the beloved fourth miss. My usually strict father treated her with unusual kindness. And my mother, who had never shown much interest in her children, was especially indulgent toward her. My eldest brother constantly referred to her as little sister. And even my own residence, the Mountain Moon Pavilion, had become her home. At a banquet held specifically for me, my mother spoke in a gentle yet firm tone. You honor. Wanshu is frail. The Mountain Moon Pavilion has a hot spring pool. As her older sister, you should give her your courtyard. I've already had someone prepare a new residence for you. My father remained silent, and my eldest brother took the opportunity to pick up a piece of food with his chopsticks and place it on Wanshu's plate, who was keeping her head down. Yan Wanshu glanced at me timidly, and I clenched the chopsticks in my hand. We haven't seen each other in half a year, and you don't even care about your daughter? What are you saying? My mother furrowed her brows. It seems that all these days of seclusion haven't changed your stubborn nature. You've even learned to disobey your elders. With the label of disobedience pinned on me, the meal was already unbearable. I left the dining hall first. After taking a few steps, I heard a voice behind me, trembling with tears. Mother, please return the Mountain Moon Pavilion to my sister. It was I who took it from her. Please don't blame her. Perhaps due to my rebirth, I collapsed to the ground before even boarding the carriage to Tianyin Monastery and fainted. In the front hall of the mansion, I had just finished drinking the medicine, and the bitter taste lingered in my mouth, when my mother returned with Yan Wanshu. Seeing me after over a month, my mother placed her hand on her chest, her tone filled with astonishment. You've grown even more lazy. Relying on your father's power, you dare to disregard an imperial edict. My father is the Prince of Jinan, but he is not of imperial blood. He earned the vast estate of the Wang family through his own efforts on the battlefield. Because of my father, I was granted the title of princess at a young age. When my father was stationed at the border with his family, I was the only one left behind in the palace. I was raised under the Empress Dowager's care, supposedly for education, but in reality as a hostage. I was denied access to books and proper etiquette. As an innocent child, I couldn't escape the palace's treacherous schemes. Day after day, I was manipulated and tormented, enduring 7 long years of suffering. I once longed for my family to return to the capital, dreaming of being reunited with my parents. But in the end, I became an outsider. Later, When the Great Qi army was defeated, I was forced to take Yan Wanzhu's place and marry into another country. Alone and helpless, I was imprisoned in the prince's mansion, enduring humiliation and suffering in silence. However, during those humiliating days, I had a wise teacher to guide me and loyal friends to protect me. Though I ultimately lost in the end, I died with honor. Looking back, those days were far more vibrant than the present, where I endure constant injustices. My mother demanded to know why I was still in the mansion. My gaze swept past her and landed on Yan Wanzhu. She was slender and delicate, clearly a frail beauty. My mother grabbed Yan Wanzhu's white, delicate wrist and introduced her to me. "This is the daughter I have taken in as my own. She will be living in the mansion from now on." Yan Wanzhu's eyes were bright and alluring, as if naturally shrouded in a layer of mist. Sister. I'm Yan Zhu." I tilted my head slightly, smiling faintly. "Who are you? Some wild girl, daring to call this princess sister?" My words were harsh, and my mother immediately scolded me, her voice filled with the pain of disappointment. "Mother," I asked in return, "don't you smell the medicinal scent in this hall at all?" The pungent, bitter scent filled my nostrils, reminding me over and over again that my mother truly did not care about me. My mother cherished Yan Wanzhu without reason, yet she ignored my pale face, her own flesh and blood. Yan Wanzhu gently tugged at her mother's sleeve. Startled by my question, my mother snapped back to reality. "Are you ill? Has the court physician been to examine you?" I sat back in my chair, propping up my heavy head with my hand. "I sent someone to the palace with a token to summon the imperial physician." My mother sighed. "If it's just a minor illness, why bother disturbing the inner palace? Your temperament has truly been spoiled." Indeed, it had been spoiled. But wasn't that exactly what the noblemen in the palace loved to see, me being arrogant and defiant? With an empty head? My illness came on suddenly, and I missed the time to enter the palace to pray for the Empress Dowager's well-being. The imperial physician prescribed several doses of medicine, saying my mind was agitated and my qi and blood were blocked, requiring careful nurturing. Upon hearing this, the emperor exempted me from my seclusion. My mother took Yan Wanzhu to a Buddhist temple in the suburbs of the capital, keeping us apart, so we were temporarily at peace. The fine spring rain fell continuously, not stopping even into the night. I held a candle and leaned by the window, admiring the rain. Amidst the gentle patter of rain, a blue figure holding an oil paper umbrella approached the house. The closed umbrella slid to the side of the door, and the damp, cool air followed him inside. Before he reached me, his voice came first. "You honor. I brought you some pastries you like. Your robe is wet. Be careful not to catch a cold. The weather is getting warmer." "It's fine," my second brother replied while taking out the pastries wrapped in oil paper from his chest. The originally square oil paper was squashed, and even without opening it, I could imagine the state of the pastries inside. Second brother blushed slightly and tapped his forehead. "It got squashed while we were rushing to avoid the rain. I'll buy you some tomorrow." Only second brother remembered that I loved HUII cake. The pastry shop in the southern part of the city was famous for its HUII cake, and second brother would always bring me some whenever he returned from the martial arts training ground. As I looked at the pastries on the table, a vision flashed before my eyes, a blood-stained letter announcing second brother's death. He had died on the battlefield. His body never recovered. When my family's carriage passed by the place where he had died, we couldn't even get out to pay our respects. My heart ached as if it were being wrapped in layers of thorn vines, and even taking a breath caused spasms of pain. "You honor. What's wrong?" My second older brother waved his hand in front of my face. "Why do you look so pale?" My second older brother was always sincere and kind to others. He thought I was jealous because my mother had brought back an adopted daughter, so he tried his best to comfort me. I bit into the deformed cake and stuffed a piece into my second older brother's mouth to stop him from speaking. My mother was cold toward me and toward my two older brothers as well. When she heard that my second older brother had been injured in the army, she only glanced at him and didn't even ask a single question. The things I longed for but couldn't have, my second older brother hadn't gotten either. Why should he comfort me? My second older brother's mouth was stuffed with pastries. He looked around and mumbled, "Why are there so many candles lit in your room? It's so bright it's blinding. How can you rest?" Seeing my second older brother about to extinguish the candles, my body stiffened, and I shrieked, "Don't touch them!" My second older brother's hand hovered in the air, his face filled with confusion. I swallowed hard and said, "Second older brother, I'm tired. Please go back first." "Oh, all right." After my second older brother left, the room fell silent once more. I collapsed onto the desk, feeling as though I had returned to the sixth prince's mansion in the southern imperial city. The servants who had accompanied me on the marriage alliance had all died before my eyes. The courtyard was pitch black, with only the sticky sensation of blood mixed with dirt clinging to my body, solidifying into a nightmare that had haunted me for years. That was the gift the sixth prince of Southern had given me upon our first meeting. He had poured all his hatred for the Duchy imperial family and his resentment toward the one he loved but could not have onto me. Because of my cold and unyielding attitude, refusing to acknowledge Yan Wanshu as my sister, my mother grew increasingly dissatisfied with me. At first, I closed the courtyard gates due to illness. Later, when I recovered somewhat, I began visiting the palace every few days to accompany the Empress Dowager. Not seeing each other meant no conflicts arose. As May began and the summer heat approached, I was picking fresh flower branches for the Empress Dowager in the imperial garden when I noticed a group of eunuchs hurrying toward the Changxin Palace. "What are they doing?" I asked the palace maid behind me, holding a bouquet of blue and pink flowers. "Your Highness, the Southern has sent the sixth prince, Yen Su, as a hostage. These eunuchs are going to prepare his quarters." The Changxin Palace was remote and cold, abandoned for many years, and cleaning it would take some effort. I turned my attention back to the flowers in my arms and handed them to the palace maid. "You may go back first. I'll pick some more flowers nearby." After the maid left, I made my way to the Luhua Palace with ease. In terms of remoteness, the Luhua Palace was on par with the Changxin Palace. The vast palace was empty, and even in summer, it felt cool. Someone was buried in a book at the simple desk inside the palace. Upon hearing my footsteps, they immediately looked up. "Yuan, sister?" Wei Lingyo's eyes lit up. He set down his brush and walked toward me. From a step away, I took out the pills I had spent a fortune to find in recent days. These contain poisonous worms. Once ingested, you must take medicine to suppress them every month. Otherwise, you will gradually bleed to death. Wei Lingyu took the pills, as if he had received a new toy, his eyes still sparkling with joy. "Why did you choose me, Sister Yuan?" "Because I had no choice." Those words were hurtful. Wei Lingyu was a choice made out of necessity. He was the posthumous son of the deposed crown prince, who had narrowly escaped execution and was left to fend for himself in the Luhua Palace. The current emperor was growing dim-witted. The princes were brutal and incompetent, and the court officials were engrossed in factional struggles. The foundation of the state was as rotten as a tree infested with insects. And later, they were forced by the Southern to cede cities and territories. Wei Lingyu not only inherited the deposed crown prince's good looks but also his spiritual essence. In this palace, Wei Lingyu was like a pearl hidden in the dust. We had no connection in the past. In my previous life, he had been ill for days and could not be cured. When I left the Tianyun monastery, he had already been dead for over a month. In this life, while leaving the palace at night, I accidentally encountered a young eunuch who had been beaten nearly to death while pleading for a physician for Wei Lingyu. I diverted my path to the Luhua Palace and saved Wei Lingyu's life. He wanted to live, and I happened to need a legitimate reason to act. I told him the truth, but Wei Lingyu only laughed. His slightly loose robe fluttered gently, making him appear even more gaunt. The light from outside the hall fell upon Wei Lingyu and me, casting alternating patterns of light and shadow. Wei Lingyu smiled, staring into my eyes, and swallowed the pill in front of me. Moments later, he arched his back and slowly knelt down. Wei Lingyu's temples began to throb, and his breathing grew heavier. The sensation of the poisonous insects in his body was unbearable. I let Wei Lingyu, who was kneeling before me, grip my wrist. He looked pitiful, but only in this state could I muster a shred of trust toward him. My wrist was red from his grip. After a moment, Wei Lingyu raised his head and said haltingly, "Now, can you tell me what you need me to do? Kill someone for me." I slipped a piece of paper into Wei Lingyu's robe. "This is the names of a few people I've planted in the palace. You can use them." "Who should I kill?" "The 6th Prince of Nanyue, Yen Su." This was a test that both Wei Lingyu and I were well aware of. I wanted to test the sharpness of his blade. More than that, I wanted to bind him completely to my ship of thieves. Wei Lingyu regained some strength, and his hand reached up, brushing away the hydrangea petals stuck to my collar. The petals fell silently into Wei Lingyu's palm. He smiled and replied, "All right." I lowered my gaze, my tone obscure. "Don't you want to ask why I want him dead? If Yuan Heir doesn't want him alive, it must be his fault. In a previous life, Yen Su had fallen in love at first sight with Yen Wanshu. After a fleeting glance, Yen Wanshu secretly slipped him a few pastries wrapped in a handkerchief, and Yen Su was deeply infatuated. After the Great Qi army was defeated, Yen Su, who had already returned to Nanyu, sought to marry Yen Wanshu, who had become a princess. Since Yen Wanshu refused, Yen Su begged in vain and had no choice but to let her go. Later, the two agreed to use the excuse of incompatible birth charts to temporarily change the bride for the marriage alliance to me. My second older brother died defending the borders, and my eldest brother chose to sacrifice me to protect the woman he loved, Yen Wanyu. Thinking of this, my temples throbbed in pain. By the time I left the palace, it was already evening. The setting sun cast long shadows, and the outer steps of Xi'an Palace were desolate. The deputy director of the astronomical observatory was being led toward the main hall of the Xi'an Palace when he bumped into me. He bowed and said, "Greetings, Princess Yongkong. No need for formalities." "Sir." I stopped in my tracks. "You've come at a good time. The Empress Dowager is in a good mood right now." The deputy director pretended to wipe sweat from his forehead, then stepped aside to let me pass. As I stepped down the last stone stair, I turned to look back at the majestic palace behind me. Judging by the time, the deputy director should have already seen the Empress Dowager. I assumed she was probably in a bad mood now. Stepping into the orange glow, I got into the carriage to return to the mansion. Before we had even reached halfway, a servant from the mansion hurriedly stopped the carriage. "Princess, something terrible has happened. The second young master has fallen ill. The prince has sent me to the palace to summon a court physician. Please hurry back and see what has happened." I suddenly pulled back the curtain, my ears ringing. How could my second brother suddenly fall ill? The second young master sustained some external injuries at the martial arts field at noon. After returning to the mansion, he suddenly developed a high fever, followed by a rash all over his body. He is now delirious from the fever. The curtain was clenched in my hand, completely distorted. External injuries, high fever, red rashes. These symptoms were identical to those my mother had suffered in my previous life. She had accidentally cut her palm while tending to flowers, and high fever and red rashes followed, nearly costing her her life. At the time, I had personally gone to the palace to summon a court physician for my mother. Yan Wanshu had stayed by her bedside, using her own blood as medicine to save her life. After she woke up, she was deeply moved and had Yan Wanshu's name added to the family registry. She also asked my father to request a princess title for her. However, I was scolded by my mother for returning too late. Seeing Yan Wanshu's emaciated and pale appearance, even I felt compassion for her. Yet now, my second older brother has contracted the same illness. I leaped off the carriage, used a dagger to cut the rope holding the horse, grabbed the reins, and galloped toward the mansion. The wind whistled past my ears, and the killing intent in my chest surged upward. I arrived just in time to see the maid feeding my second brother medicine. A crowd gathered around the bed, with Yan Wanshu being supported by my eldest brother, her forearm tightly bandaged. Upon seeing me return, my father beckoned me over and explained that my second brother's condition was critical. Had it not been for Yan Wanshu trying an ancestral remedy and resolutely administering bloodletting, my second brother's life would have been in grave danger. I pushed through the crowd, walked to the bedside, and bent down to feel my second brother's forehead. After a bowl of medicine, the high fever had not subsided, but the red rash had faded significantly. This time, it's all thanks to Yan Wanshu. My mother sighed in relief, speaking slowly. Your Highness, I want Yan Wanshu to be admitted into the ancestral hall and entered into the family registry. From now on, she will be my true daughter. My father's expression softened, and he was about to agree when my eldest brother also looked at Yan Wanshu with a look of relief. Several gazes met, and finally all fell on me. I wiped my second brother's sweat with a handkerchief and said indifferently, Mother, you decide. Yan Wanshu's eyes filled with tears, and her autumn-colored eyes, brimming with tears, shone brightly. Sister finally accepts me. I thought you would never like me because I'm so stupid. Being added to the family registry was a major event, and entering the ancestral hall required selecting an auspicious date. While they were still choosing a date, the Empress Dowager sent word from the palace. The imperial astrologer reported that someone from the Wang family had tampered with my birth chart, causing me to faint suddenly before I could go to the Tianyun temple to pray for the Empress Dowager's well-being. The Empress Dowager has also been ill for months. The Empress Dowager was initially skeptical, but when my second brother suddenly fell ill, she was greatly alarmed. Thus, she sent someone out of the palace the next day. The eunuch who delivered the message bowed low and spoke cautiously to my father, Your Highness. Princess Yongkang was raised under the Empress Dowager's watchful eye. She is the Empress Dowager's cherished treasure. Now, the Empress Dowager has merely confined Miss Yen to the Buddhist hall, which is already an act of immense mercy. Confined to the Buddhist hall, but no date has been set for her release. She recites the Heart Sutra 100 times a day, fearing her arms will break from the strain. Our Empress Dowager has always been so merciful. After the eunuch left, Yan Wanshu's face turned ashen. She bit her lips tightly and looked at her older brother helplessly. Her older brother gently patted Yan Wanshu's back, hesitated, then turned to me and said, You honor. One shouldn't fully believe the words of the 8 characters. Why don't you go to the palace and plead with the Empress Dowager for mercy? Not entirely true? Then why did my older brother in the previous life insist that the horoscope was true? Petition the emperor, and force me to marry Yan Wanshu? Does my older brother truly believe the Empress Dowager is worried that Yan Wanshu might hurt me? I asked gently. The Empress Dowager is only angry because Yan Wanshu was there, preventing me from praying for her in the palace. But reciting the Heart Sutra 100 times a day, even iron arms would break. I've copied more Buddhist scriptures in the palace than that. Why doesn't my older brother feel sorry for me? My older brother paused. You're a princess. But Yan Wanshu. Enough. My father slapped the table. As a subject, questioning the emperor's intentions is a grave offense. Father is right. I'll go visit my second brother first. I bowed and turned to leave. My second brother's health had improved quickly, and the red rashes had faded completely. The news from the front courtyard had just reached his ears. And as soon as we met, he urged me not to enter the palace, lest I offend the Empress Dowager. I wrapped my arm around his and said, "That's why I fled here to my second brother's place to avoid the commotion." My second brother held a scroll and tapped my forehead impatiently. "You were raised by the Empress Dowager. Everyone says you're as precious as gold and jade. But that's still the palace. You must have suffered a lot there. I'm a princess. Who dares to make my life difficult? Only my second brother dares to poke me." I rubbed my forehead, sighing that my second brother didn't know how to hit lightly. "I heard that when I was seriously ill and unconscious, you rushed back on horseback along the long street?" My second brother smiled. "When did you learn to ride a horse?" "I didn't even know. A tiger's daughter inherits her father's skills." "Then this changed handwriting is also self-taught?" My second brother held up the scroll he was holding. I had flipped through this book during the night while taking care of my second brother, and there were 2 brief annotations in the corner. I didn't know my second brother was so familiar with my handwriting. Just 2 words. And he had already noticed the difference. "All the letters you sent home over the years. I've kept every single one. Seeing your messy handwriting, I knew no one in the palace truly taught you or treated you with kindness." My handwriting was indeed terrible back then. When my father saw my writing, he sighed, saying I was too wild and hadn't learned properly even in the palace. But my second older brother said he knew it must have been because no one taught me properly. My second brother ran his fingers over the words on the paper. "You never liked reading military books. You couldn't ride a horse. And you weren't afraid of the dark. You're hiding something from your second brother. With your older brother here, what are you afraid of?" No one noticed these small changes in me, but my second brother did. If I had refused to answer, my second brother wouldn't have pressed me further. After a moment of silence, I took the book from my second older brother's hands and said with downcast eyes, "What if my second older brother isn't here anymore?" At that time, my father's old illness had recurred, and after resigning from his official post, he had returned to his hometown with my mother to convalesce. Years later, the emperor passed away, and several princes fought fiercely for the throne, leaving the empire on the brink of collapse. Yen Su returned to Nanyue, and a year later, the Nanyue army launched a surprise attack. My second older brother died in battle due to the lack of reinforcements. And before his body had even cooled, I was sent off to marry into the enemy camp, drifting aimlessly like a rootless floating leaf. It was not until a flower viewing banquet that I met the second princess of Nanyue, Yen Rong. All the changes began at that moment. The teacup was smashed against the closed door frame, startling the maidservant outside. Tea spilled everywhere, creating a mess. Through the door, the maid cautiously asked, "Princess, second young master, do you need?" "No need," I interrupted. When silence returned, the armrest of the chair had been snapped off by my second older brother's bare hands. "How dare you?" he ground out through clenched teeth, the veins on his wrists still bulging. I only said that I had had a dream and told my second brother about the important details. But judging by his expression, he clearly knew that the dream was just an excuse. I turned my head to look at my second brother. I have always had people watching Yen Wanshu, but I didn't notice any signs that she had harmed you. I was injured at the martial arts arena. After returning to the mansion, I did fall ill, and she came to visit me with my eldest brother. If she was behind this, she must have had accomplices within the mansion. My second brother pressed his temples, as if recalling something, and paused. That Yen Su is due to arrive in the capital in a few days. In recent years, the southern Yu Kingdom had been consistently outmatched by the Great Qi Kingdom. sending only unloved princes of little consequence as hostages. Yan Su was born to a palace maid, developing a nature marked by self-doubt and a lack of compassion. In the imperial palace, he had 6 maids executed for serving tea that was 2 degrees too hot. This incident reached the ears of the Emperor of Nanyu, who immediately sent this long-neglected son as a hostage. Upon returning to Nanyu, Yan Su still failed to gain the emperor's favor. The reason the Great Qi dynasty was asked to send a princess to marry the former hostage Yan Su was merely to humiliate the Great Qi royal family. My second older brother suddenly mentioned Yan Su, his expression growing somber. I spoke gently. I have already made arrangements. My second brother need only focus on being a loyal subject and a capable general. My second brother has a pure heart, he should not be entangled in these treacherous schemes. Let me be the one to live in the shadows. As for Yan Su, I will not allow him to return to the southern Yu Empire alive to cause trouble for Yan Rong. Yan Wanshu, whose hopes of being included in the family registry were dashed by the Empress Dowager's decree, spent her days copying sutras in the newly established Buddhist hall in the inner courtyard. I had intended to lure those who were helping her out, but she remained calm and obedient, drawing pitying glances from others instead. During the sweltering summer, the eldest princess's young daughter, Mu Rongjin, hosted a literary gathering at the Jishi Garden and sent an invitation to me as well. The eldest princess had waited nearly 40 years to have this daughter, whom she cherished like the apple of her eye. Mu Rongjin had grown up in the eldest princess's fiefdom and had recently returned to the capital, so everyone would give her some face. Many children from the imperial court and noble families had gathered there. Over a dozen ice blocks had been set up in Jishi Garden, and the summer heat was somewhat alleviated. I was feeding the koi in the pond under the shade of a tree when the sounds of singing and reciting poetry grew closer and then faded away. Behind me, footsteps grew louder, and Wei Lingyu, whom I hadn't seen in days, appeared beside the artificial hill. The young man's slender figure stepped through the dappled light filtering through the willow leaves, his upward tilted eyelids forming a handsome curve. Sister Yuan, why haven't you been to the palace lately? I finished scattering the last handful of fish food and replied, with you accompanying the Empress Dowager? Why would I need to go to the palace and get in her way? In terms of closeness, Wei Lingyu was the Empress Dowager's closest relative. In terms of proximity, Wei Lingyu had moved into the Xian Palace and was greatly favored by the Empress Dowager. Even Mu Rongjin's literary gatherings would invite him. Then I must thank you, Sister Yuan, for asking the official from the Huni Bureau to speak well of me. Otherwise, the Empress Dowager wouldn't even remember that I exist in the palace. It's just mutual use, there's no need to thank me. I handed Wei Lingyu a pill to suppress the poisonous insects, but suddenly heard a man's voice from behind the rockery. Where's Wang Yuan today? Didn't you send her an invitation to the gathering? Sir, I heard that the invitation was delivered. Then she must know she's uneducated and didn't dare come to embarrass herself at the gathering. Willow branches hung low, and the voices grew faint. Wei Lingyu's pupils were as dark as a deep pool, yet his smile was like a crescent moon. Sister Yuan, the wind is strong by the pond, your hair is tousled. I avoided Wei Lingyu's hand reaching toward my hair. Thank you for reminding me. When I left Jishi Garden, my second brother came to pick me up. Mao Rongjin was walking with me, and we were talking when my second brother rode up from the end of the street. Greetings, Yongjia County Princess. My second brother bowed to Mao Rongjin, and I stood between the two of them, feeling an uneasy atmosphere. On their first meeting, according to custom, Mu Rongjin should have replied with a casual no need for formalities. I looked at Mu Rongjin in confusion. She snapped out of her daze and cleared her throat. No need for formalities. I was taken aback. I remembered that her voice hadn't been this gentle earlier. The crowd gradually dispersed. My second brother pulled on the reins, reminding me that it was time to return to the mansion. Just then, a servant rushed out. panting heavily as he stopped in front of Mu Rongjin, county princess. Lu Sangongzi fell into the water and fainted from drowning. Mu Rongjin gasped, then hurried back into the Jishi garden. My second brother looked at Mu Rongjin's back with curiosity. Third young master Lu? The arrogant Lu family scoundrel who has a grudge against me? It's him. He came today as well. You honor. It wasn't you. My second brother hesitated. Of course not. He was fine when I left the banquet. Though he secretly spoke ill of me. I truly did not harm him. Mongolian Jin's figure had completely vanished from sight. Wei Lingyu, exiting the Jishi garden, brushed past her. I watched as Wei Lingyu gently adjusted his sleeves, then boarded his carriage without glancing aside. My second older brother beside me sighed. Could it really be a mistake? I withdrew my gaze and replied, perhaps. Yensu died on the night of the Mid-Autumn Festival. During the Mid-Autumn Palace banquet, Prince Yu drank too much and was led away by palace attendants to sober up. He happened to encounter Yensu. Yensu had suffered much cold treatment in the palace and spoke disrespectfully, angering Prince Yu, who accidentally struck him to death. Coincidentally, a small epidemic had broken out during this period, and the palace kept the matter tightly under wraps, claiming that Yensu had died from the epidemic. Yu Wang, having lost his virtue, was arbitrarily sent away from the capital under a pretext. I went to the palace to visit the Empress Dowager and helped her drink some calming medicine at noon. The Empress Dowager slept deeply, so I stayed in the outer hall selecting herbs to make a perfume pouch for her. The curtains were drawn low, and no one dared to disturb us. Wei Lingyu, who had come to deliver Buddhist scriptures to the Empress Dowager, stayed by my side. In a soft voice, he told me how he had used others to kill Yensu and then shifted the blame onto the Prince of Yu to eliminate him. I don't know when this habit formed, but whenever we were together, Wei Lingyu would always kneel half-bent before me, tilting his head slightly upward to look at me, as if waiting for me to praise him. Wei Lingyu remained calm and composed, gently tugging at my finger. Sister Yuan, who else do you want me to kill? Looking into Wei Lingyu's sparkling eyes, I paused for a moment. These herbs and spices are for calming the mind. I'll make you a pouch with them. After all, the first time I plotted a murder, I couldn't sleep all night. Wei Lingyu glanced down at the simple, lightweight pouch hanging from his waist and said with a smile, no need. I already have one. My father's chronic illness, which had resurfaced after his campaigns, forced my second brother to take charge of household affairs. My mother, who had never cared about such matters before, expressed some dissatisfaction, mentioning that my eldest brother was the eldest son. My second brother pretended not to hear my mother's complaints, focusing instead on establishing himself in court and entrusting household matters to me. It wasn't until my second brother accidentally injured his arm and was recovering from his injury that my mother came to visit him at night. Breaking the surface calm, I was lying by the bed, breathing steadily, when I heard my mother lift the blanket and roll up my second brother's sleeve. What is mother looking for? The wound? My second brother, who had been pretending to sleep, suddenly opened his eyes and asked, grabbing my mother's hand. The powder hidden under my mother's fingernails scattered onto the bed. I sat up straight, and in a daze, I suddenly felt a sense of realization. Hunger. You. My mother was so angry she was trembling. She pushed my second brother's hand away. Are you lying to your own mother? If a mother is unkind, does that mean her children must be foolishly obedient? My second brother retorted coldly. My mother pointed at my second brother, momentarily speechless. I spoke up. Mother, you should first explain what this powder is. Otherwise, the Buddha Hall will catch fire tonight, and the people inside may not be able to escape. My mother turned to me, her face flushed with anger. You can't kill her. She's your sister. I only have one sister. Yuan. My second older brother's expression grew completely cold. My second older brother and I had considered many possibilities. But we never imagined that Yan Wanshu was actually our mother's biological daughter. Our mother was originally the daughter of a merchant family. Before she was married, she had secretly pledged her life to the son of a servant in the mansion. But our father had forced her to marry him instead. Over the years, the prince had dreams, but the maiden had no interest. My father believed it was a match made in heaven, thinking my mother was simply cold-hearted by nature. But in reality, she had never harbored any feelings for my father and even disliked the children he had with her. Year after year, my father grew indifferent as well, and their relationship became nothing more than polite formality. When her maternal grandmother passed away, her mother returned home to mourn for a year and reunited with her childhood sweetheart, giving birth to Yan Wanshu. Yan Wanshu was born prematurely, frail, and often ill. She was raised by her biological father, and her mother felt both guilt and love toward her. After her biological father died, she took the opportunity to bring her back as an adopted daughter. Yan Wanshu was my half-sister from the same mother but different fathers. This revelation was so absurd that I wanted to laugh. Because I refused to acknowledge her, my mother took the powder she gave her, helped her poison my second older brother, and then had her come to save him, so that everyone in the family would recognize him. The powder was actually poison. Just a small amount sprinkled on a wound would seep into the bloodstream, causing high fever and rashes, requiring human blood to neutralize it. This time, my mother and she planned to use the same trick again, making my second brother remember her life-saving favor so she could leave the Buddhist temple. The mother, who had always stood at the pinnacle of filial piety, finally bowed her head after being forced to reveal the truth, telling me not to harm Yan Wanshu. The second brother was the first to react. What about the eldest brother? He has feelings for Yan Wanshu, but they are also siblings. My mother sneered. He's just the son of a concubine. Your father married me and promised me to him alone. So he drove away his biological mother and registered him under my name. My mother wanted my eldest brother to manage the household affairs simply because he truly loved Yan Wanshu. Everything was done for the sake of Yan Wanshu, her daughter. The truth had been exposed. And my mother asked, "Have you heard enough?" My second brother and I remained silent. My mother closed her eyes. Blood is thicker than water. If you kill her or spread this matter, I will not live either. My maternal grandfather was ill, so my mother decided to return to Liangzhou to fulfill her filial duty to her father. Liangzhou was a picturesque place with clear mountains and rivers, a mild climate, and a pleasant environment to live in. My eldest brother and Yan Wanyu would accompany my mother back, so I pleaded with the Empress Dowager for permission to release Yan Wanyu from the Buddhist temple. The Empress Dowager had forgotten about her entirely. Upon learning that she intended to leave the capital permanently, she agreed without hesitation. On the day of departure, my second brother and I escorted our mother and her entourage to the outskirts of the city. The area was sparsely populated, with towering trees. My mother lifted the curtain of the carriage window and looked at me, who was riding alongside on horseback. "Wang Yu, although you are my biological son, I do not like you at all. It is probably because your eyes resemble your father's too much, and you were not raised by me. In the past, I misjudged your temperament. Now, I will wait and see how high this paper kite can fly." Yan Wanshu, who was riding in the same carriage as my mother, had half her body hidden in the shadows. After my mother finished speaking, she lowered the curtain without waiting for me to respond. Moments later, birds took flight in panic, and the advancing procession suddenly came to a halt. The sound of startled horses echoing in unison. From the trees along the roadside, dozens of masked assassins leaped forth, charging toward the carriage in unison. I exchanged a glance with my second older brother on the other side. As the assassins closed in, arrows flew from a distance, piercing the leading row of assassins like a hedgehog. My second older brother's personal guards, clad in armor, rushed to the scene and used bows and crossbows to swiftly eliminate the enemies. The tide of battle turned instantly. My eldest brother, who had remained silent throughout the journey, drew his sword, pointing the tip at my second older brother, his eyes bulging with fury. You did this on purpose. You deliberately chose this deserted path to give me an opportunity to lure you into a trap. If you and Yan Wanshu had done nothing, I would have protected you both safely to Liangzhou. The resentment and jealousy in my eldest brother's eyes were chilling. Wang Heng, put away your hypocritical facade. You just want to use your grandfather's illness as an excuse to drive me and my mother out of the capital. Don't you? Why should you be favored by our father and trusted by the soldiers just because you're the younger son? I'm the eldest son, and I'll kill you. The captured assassins knelt on either side of the road. Seeing that the battle was lost, the eldest brother shouted toward the carriage. Shuer, come out quickly. I'll take you away. The carriage shook, and the first to emerge was my mother. Yan Wanshu pressed a hairpin against her mother's neck, the tip already piercing the flesh. Either let us go, or none of us will live. Yan Wanshu bared her fangs. Her mother, half in disbelief and half in pain, said, Yan Wanshu, how could you be so foolish? Following Wang Min to do such a stupid thing? Even if we reach Liangzhou, I could ensure you a life of comfort and security. Shut up! Yan Wanshu held her mother hostage while backing away, shouting back, we're both your daughters. She, Wang Yuan, can be a princess, but I'm just a rat who can't see the light of day. Tell me, why? I've already taken you back. So what if you took me back? I can't stand seeing Wang Yuan live well. Since we're both your daughters, I'll take everything she has. Yan Wanshu had slowly backed up to her eldest brother's horse, a small trickle of blood flowing down her mother's neck. Her mother's voice was hoarse. She's living well? She's just a plaything for the nobles in the palace. Why won't you believe your mother? See? My mother knows exactly what kind of life I've been living in the palace. She just doesn't care. My second brother rode up beside me. I didn't say a word, but his eyes were red with tears. Mother, don't blame me. I just couldn't bear it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have poisoned my father and cut off my own path to come seek refuge with you. Yan Wanshu whispered these blood-curdling words into her mother's ear, then shouted at me, give me another fast horse. Seeing my mother's eyes widen in pain at Yan Wanshu's words, I loosened the reins. All right. My horse is yours. In the moment Yan Wanshu relaxed slightly, I triggered the mechanism of the sleeve arrow, and the short, sharp arrow pierced the air, embedding itself directly into Yan Wanshu's forehead. Almost at the same moment, my second older brother fiercely threw his sword, slicing through my eldest brother's throat. I couldn't tell whose blood had splattered onto my mother's face. The sound of my eldest brother falling from the horse and my mother's screams mingled together. My mother collapsed to the ground, too afraid to turn and look at the two corpses behind her. My second brother and I dismounted and approached our mother. I knelt down and wiped the blood from her face. Mother, blood is thicker than water. Yan Wanshu is dead. Do you really not want to live anymore? You killed her. My mother trembled, her voice shaking. It was me. But I wasn't heartless enough to kill my own mother with my own hands. Whether you live or die is entirely up to you. My second brother had arranged for enough men, and the road was quickly cleared. Dark clouds gathered, and another rain fell that night, leaving no trace of what had happened. I helped my mother onto the carriage with my own hands. Her hands were ice cold and took a long time to warm up. Mother, please rest assured. My second brother isn't as heartless as I am. He will send a group of guards to escort you safely to Liangzhou and ensure you can live out your days in peace at your maternal grandparents' home. As for father, I will tell him that mother and my eldest brother are living well in Liangzhou. Please remember this. My mother, who was about to enter the carriage, paused and looked down at me. Are you threatening me? Fine. This is the two good daughters I gave birth to. Mother is joking. If you want good daughters, you must first be a good mother. After taking a few deep breaths, my mother brushed my hand away and entered the carriage alone. Before the curtain closed, I glanced at my mother in the dim light. Years of pampered life had left no signs of aging on her face, but now it was filled with endless fatigue. Oh, mother, you got one thing wrong. I curved my lips into a smile. Daughter is not a kite. The character in Wang Yuan's name means eagle. The curtain fell, and the carriage grew distant. On the way back to the city, a fine mist began to fall like fog. My second brother produced an umbrella from somewhere and held it over my head. Yuaner, let me go buy you some pastries, he said. The news of Yen's death had already reached Nanyu. As expected, the Southern Yu did not take advantage of Yen's death to cause trouble, but instead used it as an opportunity to propose a treaty: no war for 10 years, no more sending hostages, and no more marriages between the two countries. To secure this treaty and to bring back Yen's coffin, the Southern Yu sent an embassy. The terms of the treaty were not unreasonable, and no war was certainly a good thing. The contents spread quickly. My second older brother was among the first court officials to see the contents of the treaty. When he returned home and mentioned it to me, I asked him about another matter. Second older brother, do you know who the envoys from the Southern Yu are? My heart pounded like a drum. It hasn't been finalized yet, but I heard that the second princess of the Southern Yu is the head of the delegation and will definitely come. This is the first time the Southern Yu has sent a woman on such a mission. I unconsciously clenched my fists. It was her. She was coming. The winter in the capital of Dichi always arrived early and was exceptionally cold. Words spoken seemed to freeze into ice crystals the moment they left one's lips. When the Southern Yu delegation arrived in the capital, it was the coldest time of the year. The alliance was signed smoothly, and the emperor hosted a banquet for the envoys in the palace. My second brother and I both entered the palace. The cold wind raged outside the hall, but inside it was as warm as spring. My seat was directly across from Wei Lingyu. The emperor frequently went to pay respects to the empress dowager, inevitably coming into contact with Wei Lingyu. Wei Lingyu acted with utmost filial piety. The emperor, who had been enraged by the incident where Prince Yu mistakenly killed Yansu, found some solace in Wei Lingyu and began to take an interest in this long-neglected eldest grandson. Wei Lingyu propped his chin on his hand, and our eyes met briefly in the air. Seeing that he had no intention of looking away, I sat down on my own, pretending not to notice. When the envoys from the Southern Yu Kingdom entered the hall, I immediately spotted the tall woman leading the group, the second princess of the Southern Yu Kingdom, Yen Rong. She was poised and confident, radiant like the sun. My heartbeat quickened, and I unconsciously gripped the hem of my sleeve. Half a step behind Yen Rong stood a man as slender as a green bamboo, his posture straight and elegant, exuding an air of scholarly refinement. But I knew he had a body as sturdy as bronze. Far from the gentle appearance he presented, the arrival of Yen Rong and her entourage caused the hall to fall silent for a moment. After taking their seats, Yen Rong surveyed the room expressionlessly, finally fixing her gaze on me. We locked eyes. Words unnecessary. She raised her lips to drink. I did the same. This time, it was not a sign of disrespect, but of respect for our reunion. Snow fell gently in the night, not heavily, but beautiful in the soft moonlight. After the palace banquet, I returned to my residence and opened the west-facing window, placing a candle on the windowsill. About half an hour later, Someone came through the snow, stepping on the roof tiles, climbed through the window, and picked up the scissors beside the candle, skillfully trimming the wick. So you still remember. Yen Rong set down the silver scissors, his features softened by the candlelight. I smiled slightly, my vision blurred by tears. Leaving the candle burning by the west window is for our reunion. I will never forget. Yen Rong also smiled, his eyes moist when news of Yen's death reached me. I suspected you had returned. You acted quickly and decisively. Was the clause about not marrying into the enemy family added by you? I was the one who brokered the alliance. So of course I proposed adding that clause. The Great Qi Empire is not yet in decline, and your second brother is currently at the peak of his power. The Southern Yu Kingdom is also short on troops. You know this well. The death of Yen Su is not a significant matter for my father, the emperor. The alliance is what matters. Yen Rong replied calmly, then added, it took me half a year to eliminate Sidu Xiu and consolidate the power of the Sidu clan. 2 months ago, my father already granted me the right to participate in state affairs. You acted swiftly and ruthlessly as well, having been given a second chance at life. If I drag my feet, show mercy, or cling to the past, wouldn't I be wasting the heavens' kindness? Yen Rong raised her chin. Yen Rong is the only daughter of the Queen of Nanyue. In my previous life, when I was sent to Nanyue as a princess, she was already vying for power with the crown prince. The crown prince of the Southern Yu favored war, while Yen Su was a coward who bullied the weak and had no principles. Knowing he had no chance of ascending the throne, he devoted himself to the crown prince, becoming his henchman. He was a ruthless killer who spared no one, and he used countless underhanded tactics against Yen Rong. After meeting Yen Rong, we worked together to eliminate Yen Su, and established ourselves in the Southern Yu under the guise of being the orphan of the sixth prince. We infiltrated spies into the crown prince's inner circle. After thousands of blades were about to fall, the crown prince of the Southern Yu was defeated by Yen Rong. But just as she was within inches of the dragon throne, her own uncle, Sidu Xiu, pulled her down. One misstep, and the entire game was lost. The Southern Yu dynasty was overthrown, and Yen Rong died with arrows piercing her heart. I jumped off the city walls, thus fulfilling my duty to this close friend. It rarely snows in the Southern Yu, but now that I'm in the Great Qi Kingdom, I've seen snow. Yen Rong isn't afraid of the cold at all and is having a great time playing in the courtyard. I wrapped myself in a large cloak, made a snowball, and threw it at her. The snowball was loose and fell to the ground when she blocked it. Yen Rong rolled a tighter one and handed it to me. I'll be returning in a few days. Do you want to meet Xie Songhan? I've tested him. Only the two of us have been reborn. I took the snowball, and the coldness made my heart tremble. Forget it. Let's not meet him. Once I leave, who knows when we'll meet again. He is now an official of the Southern Yu Kingdom, and I am a princess of the Great Qi Kingdom. He has ambitions to become a marquis and a minister, and I can't wait to escape the imperial city. He doesn't recognize me, and we have nothing to say to each other. So it's better not to meet. Wang Yan, you're becoming more and more like Xie Songhan. Yen Rong looked up at the moon, seeming a bit sentimental. Don't come to see me off when I leave. I don't like goodbyes. All right. The Southern Yu delegation chose a snowless day to depart. A large group of people, followed by Yen Su's coffin. Yen Rong didn't like goodbyes, but even though she had promised not to see her off, I still climbed the city walls and silently watched her depart. Yen Rong looked full of vigor. From a distance, I seemed to see Xie Songhan, who was walking beside her, turn his head. But just then, the wind picked up, and I squinted my eyes, unable to see clearly. The streets in the city were cleared of snow. After descending the city walls, I walked alone on the street when Wei Lingyu suddenly appeared, blocking my path like a divine soldier. "Why did you leave the palace?" I asked in surprise. Wei Lingyu stepped aside to shield me from the wind. "The emperor has granted me a residence. From now on, I can live outside the palace. Congratulations. Are you going to send off the Southern Yu embassy?" "What's the point of sending them off?" I retorted. "Were you sending off that Mr. Xia?" Wei Lingyu had never asked me anything before, but this was the first time he had asked. And it was about Xia Songhan. I pulled my cloak tighter and walked past Wei Lingyu. Wei Lingyu turned and followed me at the palace banquet. I noticed that Mr. Xia immediately. Every one of his movements and words reminded me of you. If it were any other time, I would have praised Wei Lingyu for his sharp intuition. But now, I asked calmly, "Are you testing me? Trying to imply that I'm colluding with a foreign country?" "No. Of course not," Wei Lingyu stammered, startled by my question. "I never meant that. You should go check out your new residence," I replied. After shaking off Wei Lingyu, my thoughts were in disarray. Am I really that similar to Xia Songhan? If so, it wouldn't be surprising. After all, he was the one who taught me everything. Back then, he had smiled and told me, "A kite is like an eagle, it can soar through the skies." Even if I wanted to forget, the identical handwriting, preferences, and schemes that mirrored his every move constantly reminded me of Xia Songhan's existence. A heavy weight pressed against my chest, making it hard to breathe. Since my rebirth, I felt like time was flying by. My second brother gradually consolidated military power and, without my knowledge, developed feelings for Mu Rongjin. By the time I noticed, he was already blushing as he told me he intended to propose marriage. After my father's old illness flared up again, he ceased managing affairs. He vaguely sensed something amiss about my mother and eldest brother's trip to Liangzhou, but he never pressed me or my second brother for details. My mother wouldn't leave Liangzhou, so I frantically arranged all the wedding preparations for my second older brother. By the day of the wedding, my head was still spinning. Murongjin became my sister-in-law, which conveniently allowed Wei Lingyu to pay a visit. In terms of family hierarchy, Murongjin was only a few years older than him, but she was his aunt by marriage. I, who had unknowingly gained a generation in seniority, almost burst out laughing when I realized this. The Mu Rong family had become my second older brother's backing, and his official rank rose 3 times in a year, making him even more prominent. As a result, more suitors came to ask for my hand in marriage. I avoided them at all costs. And my sister-in-law was so frightened that she closed the doors to visitors. After a day of peace and quiet, Wei Lingyu climbed over the wall and slipped inside. He couldn't fight, so he looked a bit disheveled. But when he handed me a stack of papers, he looked full of confidence. I took the papers without understanding what they were, and they were filled with dense writing. "What is this?" I asked after flipping through a few pages. "These are the ridiculous things those men who want to marry you have done in their daily lives," Wei Lingyu said, kneeling down in front of me with a gentle expression. "You honor sister. They don't deserve you." "They certainly don't," I said, waving the papers in my hand. "And I don't plan to marry anyone either." Wei Lingyu stiffened. "They don't deserve you. But there must be someone who does." "Who? Are you also trying to arrange a marriage for me?" Wei Lingyu's lips trembled, and he silently climbed over the wall and left. In the 37th year of Emperor Qingqian's reign, the emperor passed away. The Wang family and the Murong family joined forces to place Wei Lingyu on the throne. Wei Lingyu was a good emperor, wise and capable, working tirelessly day and night, completely transforming the extravagant and decadent ways of the previous years of the Daqi dynasty. The only miscalculation was that, although Wei Lingyu now lived in the palace, No one dared to restrict his movements, and he developed the habit of climbing over the wall into my courtyard at night. The young man I had first met was now nearing adulthood, and Wei Lingyo's wall-climbing skills had become increasingly agile and proficient. I had gone from initial surprise to taking it in stride. The palace's rare treasures were smuggled out by Wei Lingyu and piled in my storeroom, eventually becoming toys for my young nephew and niece. My father's illness did not improve despite exhausting all medical treatments. After years of battle, he passed away in the bleak autumn. During the one-year mourning period for the Great Qi dynasty, shortly after the mourning period ended, I heard that the Emperor of Nanyue had abdicated and become the retired emperor, passing the throne to the second princess, Yan Rong. Xie Songhan's lifelong ambition was to become the head of the civil officials and eliminate the accumulated evils of Nanyue. Now, both he and Yan Rong could fulfill their wishes. I paused for a moment, suddenly realizing that I hadn't thought about Xie Songhan in a long time. I looked up at the empty sky and felt a sense of emptiness in my heart. It wasn't because of Xie Songhan, it was just that the square courtyard felt suffocating. That night, Wei Lingyu climbed over the wall to find me. His expression filled with anger. "You honor sister? Someone actually submitted a petition to the court today asking for me to be added to the harem." As Wei Lingyu muttered, I handed him a small silk box. Wei Lingyu opened the box and found a pill inside. Wei Lingyu chuckled. "Is this a new poisonous insect?" Watching Wei Lingyu's eager expression, I really wanted to pry open his mind to see what he was thinking. "It's the antidote for the poisonous insect in your body." I lied when I said it could only suppress it. "Take this pill, and the poisonous insect will be completely neutralized." Wei Lingyu's smile froze on his face. "Why are you giving this to me?" I sat on the swing in the courtyard, swaying slowly. "It was to control you back then, but now it's unnecessary. Besides, I plan to leave the capital, and my return date is uncertain. The Wang family has been carefully planning every step, and they are now unshakable. Moreover, given Wei Lingyu's character, he wouldn't dare to harm the Wang family. The poisonous insect truly has no reason to exist anymore." "Leave the capital? Where will you go?" Wei Lingyu murmured after hearing my words. "The world is vast, I will travel far and wide." When Wei Lingyu crushed the antidote in his hand, I thought I was hallucinating. "I don't want the antidote. You can take me with you." After Wei Lingyu spoke, I thought I was hearing things again. "You're mad? You're the emperor." Wei Lingyu let his hands drop limply. His voice muffled. "Yes. I am the emperor. You said before that the Great Qi needs a good emperor." The courtyard was filled with the rustling sound of leaves. After a moment, Wei Lingyu raised his head. "Why do you want to leave?" "I don't like it here." After a brief silence, Wei Lingyu said, "I understand. You don't like the capital, and you don't like the palace. Go to a place you like." Seeing that Wei Lingyu had come to his senses, I took out another brocade box. "Fortunately, there are 2 antidotes. You only destroyed one of them." Wei Lingyu took a step back, as if he had seen a flood or a beast. "I don't want the antidote. I'd rather you send me the medicine that suppresses the parasites every month." "Why?" Earlier, I had wanted to give Wei Lingyu 6 months' worth of medicine at once, but he refused, insisting that I send it to him monthly. "At least this proves that we're still connected, that you haven't abandoned me." Wei Lingyu's words made me feel like a heartless person for no apparent reason. Before I could shake off that thought, I heard Wei Lingyu ask cautiously, "Will you miss me after you leave?" "Yes," I answered honestly without hesitation. The feelings accumulated over countless days and nights couldn't be faked. Wei Lingyu nodded, as if muttering to himself, "Then I'll go. If I stay any longer, I'll regret it." Watching Wei Lingyu's dazed figure, I clenched the silk box in my hand. A feeling of reluctance began to grow in my heart, but it eventually succumbed to my longing for freedom. I paused for a moment and reminded Wei Lingyu. That's the courtyard gate, the wall is on the right. Wei Lingyu's footsteps halted, and he straightened his back. Today, I will leave through the front gate. After leaving the capital, I traveled south, seeing many beautiful sights along the way. Every month, without fail, I sent letters to my brother and sister-in-law and sent medicine pills and letters to the palace. I sent the recipe for the medicine pills to Wei Lingyu, but he replied that he had accidentally lost the recipe and could only rely on me. One day, while passing through a small town, I saw an old man lying in the middle of the road, clinging to a young girl dressed as a boy, claiming she had injured him and demanding compensation. The girl, furious yet smiling, retorted, "You're just trying to extort money." Her choice of words was novel and amusing, so I intervened to help her and treated her to a meal. After she explained the meaning of scamming, I felt a sudden clarity. I realized that I had been scammed by Wei Lingyu. After she had eaten her fill, the girl bid me farewell. I advised her, as a woman traveling alone, be cautious in all matters. Did you figure out I was dressed as a man? It's quite obvious, I replied honestly. The young woman touched the back of her head. I actually wanted to join the army. I'm quite skilled, but I've been starving these past few days. In the Great Qi dynasty, women disguising themselves as men to join the army was a serious crime. Looking at the charming young woman before me, I reached into my bag and handed her a jade pendant. Take this jade pendant to the Wang family in the capital. Find my sister-in-law. Her name is Mu Rongjin. She's a wonderful person, and she makes all the decisions in the mansion. As long as you have real talent, she'll find you a good path in life. Since leaving the capital, I haven't returned to the imperial city. The things I heard and saw along the way gradually filled the emptiness in my heart. Because I was traveling abroad, news from the capital always reached my ears a few days later. For instance, Wei Lingyu refused to expand his harem, and since my sister-in-law is his cousin, he directly adopted my young nephew into his biological father's lineage, making him his younger brother, under the pretext of being related by marriage and part of the imperial clan. When I heard this news, Wei Lingyu was already weeping bitterly while paying respects to his ancestors, and had already designated my young nephew as the crown prince. Another example is the young girl who took my jade pendant to the capital. She was exceptionally skilled in combat, single-handedly defeating 100 bandits during a raid, and became the martial arts master of my young niece. By the time I heard about it, she had already become a female general in the army. Though her rank was still low, she was still the first of her kind in the Great Qi dynasty. Another example is when the current emperor suddenly passed away. The 14-year-old crown prince ascended the throne, and the power transition went smoothly, with the court remaining stable. This news spread faster than the previous ones. While I was drinking tea at a roadside tea house, the news of Wei Lingyu's death was suddenly announced to the world. I choked on my tea and couldn't stop coughing. According to the announcement, if Wei Lingyu had truly died during the sweltering summer, his body should already be decomposing. I shook my head and finally understood what Wei Lingyu meant when he sent me a letter asking me to stay at my current residence for a few more days. I had rented a courtyard in the small town and had originally planned to leave, but now I extended my stay. Half a month later, an unexpected visitor arrived at the small courtyard. After 9 years apart, Wei Lingyu looked exactly the same as I remembered him. I'm passing through here and would like to ask for a drink of water, Wei Lingyu said in a more composed voice. But I couldn't help but detect a hint of mischief in his tone. Just water? I'd also like to stay for a while. I don't keep strangers around here. If you want to stay, you'll have to work. Wei Lingyu raised an eyebrow. I knew you'd say that. So I brought a helper. As Wei Lingyu finished speaking, a head suddenly peeked out from the door. Eyes sparkling, "Auntie, I've come to find you." Wei Lingyu had faked his death and abdicated the throne. And when he left the capital, he had even brought my young niece Ninger along. I couldn't help but laugh and cry at the same time. Ninger darted forward like an arrow, instantly throwing herself into my arms. A few steps away, Wei Lingyu watched me and Ninger, his hands behind his back, his brows and eyes as before, his smile unchanged. Months later, Wei Lingyu, who had completely broken the curse, and I returned Ninger home together. Wei Lingyu wore a mask and openly spent the New Year's Eve and Lantern Festival with me and my family in the mansion. After the first month of the new year, I set off once more. This time, however, I was no longer alone. Wei Lingyu accompanied me, just like the me of the past, finding everything new and fascinating, pulling me along to see all the rare sights I had mentioned in my letters. While staying in a quiet village with him, one morning, Wei Lingyu had wandered off somewhere, and I couldn't find him. Instead, I found his perfume pouch by the door. He had carried this pouch with him for many years, and it was now very old, with the silk ribbon broken, causing it to fall to the ground. The pouch was light and airy, as if it contained nothing, and it had no scent at all. I opened the pouch and found only a single sheet of paper, neatly folded into a square. When I unfolded the paper, a petal of a faded, yellowed hydrangea flower, pressed flat and smooth, lay before my eyes. Memories of Wei Lingyu flooded back. It was the silent and empty hall of eternal splendor. Wei Lingyu had taken the medicine I gave him and knelt before me. It was I who told him to kill Yan Su. He raised his hand, stiffened from the pain, brushed the hydrangea petal off my sleeve, and smiled as he said, "All right." That petal that had fallen into Wei Lingyu's palm had been hidden by him for all these years. I closed the page, along with the petals, and put them back into the perfume pouch. A moment later, Wei Lingyu hurried back. "Where did you go?" I asked. "To pick some fruit." "Where's the fruit?" "I didn't make it there. I came back." Wei Lingyu looked anxious. "I lost my perfume pouch. I looked everywhere but couldn't find it." I extended the hand behind my back toward Wei Lingyu. The pouch swayed lightly in my hand. It fell by the door. "I found it." Wei Lingyu took the pouch and exhaled deeply. "Thank goodness it's still here. The string is broken. I'll make you a new one." I paused, then added, "But the contents stay the same." Wei Lingyu froze for a moment before breaking into a silly smile. "All right. I won't change it. Not ever." Heaven and earth were our witnesses as Wei Lingyu and I made a lifelong promise. My name is Wei Lingyu, a prince raised in the Luhua Palace. When I was young, I was looked after by an old nurse. She said that I was the posthumous child of an abandoned crown prince and had no one to rely on in the palace. So I had to be careful and cautious. It would be best if everyone forgot about me. Then I would be able to live. When I was 7 years old, the nurse fell ill. To save her, I ventured out of the Luhua Palace for the first time but got lost in the imperial garden. I stopped a palace maid and begged her to take me to the imperial physician. She was so frightened by me that she screamed. The palace maid's screams attracted others, and I backed away step by step, hiding beside a tree. There, I saw a person who looked like a celestial being. The palace maid who had screamed earlier addressed her as princess. I didn't understand why she looked unhappy, even though she had a beautiful hairstyle and wore elegant clothes. She must have heard something. After glancing at me, she spoke in a voice as tender as mine, instructing the palace maid, "Have the imperial physician come and take a look." Her words saved the old nurse's life for 3 more years. I never forgot her. Later, I finally understood why she had been unhappy. She was the Yongkong princess, raised in the Xian Palace. The Empress Dowager in the Xian Palace was neither kind nor peaceful. She was a hypocritical old woman and my great-grandmother. I occasionally heard news about her. One winter day, her parents finally returned to the capital and took her out of the palace. On the day she left, I sneaked a peek. She was wearing a red cloak embroidered with orchids, and the white fox fur collar around her neck was warm and beautiful. She ran out of the palace like a fluttering butterfly, flying over the snow to see her family. I thought she would be happy like this forever. But I was wrong. When I saw her again, she looked even colder. This time, it was I who fell ill. The old nurse had died 2 years earlier, and the young eunuch who had requested a court physician for me had been beaten half to death, lying in the bed of the Luhua palace. I wondered if the old nurse had been mistaken. I had already retreated into myself to survive, yet I still couldn't go on living. I had no strength left, and I felt there was no way out. But then the doors of the Luhua palace were pushed open, letting in a ray of light. The one who opened the door was the young princess who had once been as ethereal as a celestial child. I thought I was dreaming. I raised my finger to touch her, but before it could reach her, I fainted. When I woke up, I realized that it wasn't a dream. She had saved me. She didn't remember meeting me before. She just wanted a good knife. I tentatively called her Sister Ing, but she didn't say much. Instead, she gave me a pill containing a poisonous insect, which I swallowed without thinking. She told me to kill the hostage sent by the Southern Yu Kingdom. I knew that if I was exposed, I would be doomed, but I agreed anyway. She finally smiled, a faint smile that lasted only a moment. The petals of the embroidered ball on her body fell into my palm. I whispered in my heart, "Grandma, living in fear is useless. I want to live a different life. A life where I could stand beside Wang Yuan." Perhaps I was never meant to be a good person. After leaving the Luhua palace, I climbed the ranks by any means necessary, thriving in my new environment. I couldn't bear to hear anyone speak ill of her. When someone called her ignorant, I pushed them into the pond and rinsed their mouth with the water. Later, I plotted to kill Yan Su and asked her who else I should kill. I was desperate for her to say another name, so that I could prove that I was still useful. She paused for a moment and said that she could make me a sachet to calm my nerves. I froze. How could there be someone as kind as her in this world? But someone so kind would actually steal glances at an envoy from Nanyue. That envoy looked so much like her that I wanted to throw him out. A strange emotion churned in my chest, eventually crystallizing into 2 words: jealousy. Fortunately, I didn't dwell on it for long before the Southern Yu envoy departed. I suspected that the envoy and she must have a special relationship. But since she didn't want to talk about it, I didn't press further. Time would reveal her true feelings, and she would eventually realize that I was the blade most suited for her. I became more and more reluctant to leave her. As a knife, I worked hard to sharpen myself until I was fast and sharp. And finally, I became emperor. The difficult affairs of state weighed heavily on me, and I climbed the wall every night to see her, so that I could rest easy. But one day, she suddenly said she was leaving. She even gave me the medicine that completely removed the curse. I was panicked, overwhelmed by the fear of being abandoned, and crushed the medicine on the spot. But in the end, I let her go because she didn't want to stay here. I asked her if she would miss me after leaving, and she said she would. In that moment, I was certain that she cared about me. I secretly rejoiced that I had respected her decision and not ruined this hard-won connection. That night, I walked out the front gate of her mansion properly, startling many people. But I wanted everyone to know that I wouldn't fill my harem. My heart was with the young princess of the Wang family. Even if she left the capital, I wouldn't change. After she left, she often sent me letters. I had never seen her so happy before, and I missed her dearly. A ridiculous idea formed in my mind and was quickly put into action. I designated her nephew as the crown prince and devoted everything to his education. He was intelligent, smarter than me and even his own father. When he turned 14, I secretly feigned my death, shocking everyone. But I knew it wouldn't scare her, because she understood me better than anyone else. Sure enough, when I found her, she was just smiling at me, exactly as she had in my dreams. I exhaled deeply. I've had enough of being a good emperor. I'm going to be Wei Ling Yu, the king of Wang Yuan. When I was a teenager, I asked my father why he named me Song Han. My father said that a pine tree in the cold remains straight and sturdy, and he wanted me to never bend the backbone of a scholar. At that moment, I vowed in my heart that one day, the name Xia Songhan will be etched into the annals of history. At 19, I passed the imperial examinations, entered the court, and eventually became a disciple of the second princess. The customs of the southern Yu were open, and southern Yu women were far more free than those of the great Qi. The second princess was just as talented as the princes. She was kind-hearted and resourceful, and I was happy to be under her command. Sure enough, the second princess was soon allowed to participate in political discussions, and later she was sent to Daqiao to sign a treaty. The second princess inexplicably took me with her on this trip, and the closer we got to the capital of Daqiao, the more nervous she seemed to become. I assumed she was nervous about her first diplomatic mission, but one day, I overheard her whispering a name, Wang Yun. Later, I saw the woman she had mentioned at a palace banquet. She was a princess of the great Qi kingdom, and her father was the renowned general of the southern frontier. The second princess was oddly silent when she saw her, despite having mentioned her earlier. During the banquet, I took a curious glance at the princess, but I didn't expect to catch her eye. My mind went blank. Her eyes were so beautiful, like a pool of melted snow. Even though we had just met, I felt like we had known each other for a long time, like old friends reunited. This feeling left me dizzy. Fortunately, she looked away, or else I would have lost my composure. The dancers in the hall were gracefully moving, and through the fluttering sleeves, I couldn't catch her gaze again. On the day I left Daki, the wind blew so hard it stung my face. The embassy's pace wasn't particularly fast, but outside the city gates, I felt as though I had lost something. Without thinking, I turned back to look once more. I saw the princess again. She was on the city walls, so far away, yet I was certain that figure was her. I didn't know who she had come to see off. I hoped she had come to see me off. The moment that thought crossed my mind, I scolded myself inwardly. Such a foolish thought, unnecessarily sullying her reputation. After returning to Nanyue, I threw myself into court affairs. Later, the second princess defeated all her rivals and ascended the throne. I was one step closer to achieving my lifelong ambition of being recorded in history and being granted the title of Marquis. In the great Qi kingdom, many major events unfolded. The Wang and Mu Rong clans rose to become the leading aristocratic families, and the new emperor was the once-neglected imperial grandson. I don't know what came over me, but I deliberately kept an eye on Wang Yun's news. She was living well, the apple of the Wang family's eye, though she didn't go out much and was said to be somewhat melancholic. The next time I heard news about her, it was that she had left the capital of Dachi to travel the land. I wonder how many places she has visited. I envy her carefree life, but I know that my destiny is to dedicate my life to the imperial court, investigating corruption, exposing fraud, and eliminating redundancy. For the first time, I realized that civil officials could also face so many assassination attempts. After narrowly escaping death countless times, I rose to the position of Right Chancellor. Those who once mocked me as a lowly commoner now gritted their teeth in envy as they watched my back. For years, the Southern Yu Kingdom and the Great Qi Kingdom have not gone to war. The people of both nations have been able to rest and recover, living in harmony and joy. My name, Xia Songhan, will surely be recorded in the annals of history. And the second princess of yesteryear, now the empress, is even concerned about my marriage. She spoke bluntly, expressing concern that I would have cold meals every day once I returned home. How could that be? I clearly have a cook in my household. I dared not admit that there was a vague figure in my heart. She is a princess from another country, and I dare not even mention her name. Several years passed, and another emperor of the great Qi dynasty passed away. This emperor was truly a once-in-a-thousand-years ruler. He had no consorts or heirs and devoted himself to nurturing a child of royal blood. That child was exceptionally talented, and his maternal grandmother had once been a princess. He was forcibly designated as the crown prince and eventually ascended the throne as the new emperor. Rumors spread that the deceased emperor had been infatuated with the princess of the royal family, even going so far as to climb over the walls of the royal estate in secret. But I didn't believe it. How could an emperor do such a thing? This historical account is too far-fetched. Having lived alone for so long, I developed the habit of strolling through the streets during my days off. One day, I heard someone call out behind me, "Yuan-er," at a banquet held specifically for me. My mother spoke in a gentle yet unwavering tone. The man who just called out Yuan-er was the one who turned around. I saw he was wearing a mask. The woman never turned around. I felt a bit dazed. That silhouette hadn't changed at all, just like when she rose and left the palace in the Great Qi Imperial Palace all those years ago. She had actually come to the southern Yu Kingdom, accompanied by a man by her side. But it wasn't surprising. Yuan means hawk, capable of soaring through the skies. In this vast world, there's no place she can't go. We walked in opposite directions, each blending into the bustling crowd. Tomorrow is not a day of rest. To ensure that the page in the annals of history is written in bold ink, I must get back to work. The end.